Kurt Vonnegut is about to commit a war crime and drop some fire Dresden knowledge bombs on us to help us understand how we can find our authentic style and voice as writers. And this is one of the main things that beginning and intermediate writers struggle with. And from what I can tell, and I think Vonnegut is going to support me here, is that writers struggle with this because they apply their logic, bro, their logical mentality to trying to fix this problem. Because as Americans and in the Western world, because of the Mick MFA factories, because of the workshop, because of American realism, that got programmed into our artistic consciousness, by guys like Dreiser and Norris at the start of the 20th century. We believe that determination and hard work and just sitting down and writing, all you have to do is write, will help you find your authentic voice. And sometimes that does work. But for many authors, going at this problem with logic and determination and pure time doesn't actually solve the problem. And if you guys don't know, my name is Ian, and here on Write Conscious, we talk about the greatest authors and books of all time. And that, of course, includes Kurt Vonnegut. And if you love Kurt Vonnegut, I have a playlist down below with more videos I've done on Vonnegut, and I have over 500 other videos on writing, books, and a bunch of other cool stuff here on this channel if you want to subscribe. But hey, you're not here for me. You are here for Kurt Vonnegut. So let us now hear from him. The writing style which is most natural for you is bound to echo the speech you heard when a child. English was Conrad's, we're talking about Joseph Conrad here, author of Heart of Darkness, third language. And much that seems piquant in his use of English was no doubt colored by his first language, which was Polish. And lucky indeed is the writer who has grown up in Ireland, for the English spoken there is so amusing and musical. I myself grew up in Indianapolis, where common speech sounds like a bandsaw cutting galvanized tin and employs vocabulary as unornamental as a monkey wrench. In some of the more remote hollows of Appalachia, children still grow up hearing songs of locutions of Elizabethan times. Yes, and many Americans grow up hearing a language other than English, or an English dialect a majority of Americans cannot understand. And so Vonnegut nails it on the head here, you guys. And this is bad news for a lot of people because I've spoken at length before about how Cormac McCarthy, William Vollmann, David Foster Wallace, and many of the Don DeLillo, many of the literary, Toni Morrison, the literary fiction icons that we love were programmed and trained, to be the GOATs, to be writing at the highest levels of eloquence since the start of their life. David Foster Wallace's parents were both professors. William T. Vollmann was an Ivy Leaguer. Cormac McCarthy's father was the valedictorian of Yale Law School. I can look at that bookshelf behind me, and when you say a GOAT, most of the time, and there are some outliers, that individual was raised to write like that. Most of us as Americans in a declining society in terms of intellectual capability are not that person. But all of us want to be that person. All of us want to be seen as the smart, mind-blowing person like Cormac McCarthy. But David Foster Wallace and Cormac McCarthy and so many others put 10,000 hours into that voice and into that mentality before they even graduated high school, before they even knew they wanted to be a writer. And so this is the core of the literary renaissance. The other day I was asked, and someone was mad. They're like, Ian, you never talk about the standards for the movement. Why are you being so vague? The reason I'm being vague in the literary renaissance is when 50,000 authors are willing to step into their authentic voice, write, and then speak about their work to the world. And when that happens, literature will change forever. But my reply, and I didn't comment because it would have taken me 30 minutes to rant back, was that if you were trying to be the next literary fiction icon, the best, the GOAT, then that your standard is going to be very, very high, and we will have to judge you according to that standard. But I have a friend who is a part of this movement who I met online, and he is from Peru, and he speaks English, and he wants to restore like Peruvian storytelling and Peruvian storytelling styles in a kind of literary way. His standard is lower in terms of style and skill than David Foster Wallace, but his scope is larger. It's because he is bringing in a hybrid of systems, which isn't easy. He is setting out to bridge two art forms, the Western literary style and this Peruvian storytelling, in a way that will be appealing to audiences. And so if I objectively read his story through the lens of a logic, bro, like, is this the best? Is this better than Tolstoy? Like, so many people do that, which is insane. They compare every single work they read to the best work of all time, or I should say the most elevated works of all time. So, of course, if you do that, it won't be very good. But we have to remember as authors, and this is what Vonnegut is, I think, trying to say here, and I think you would agree with me, our job isn't to write for the masses. We're not airplane rack novelists. Long dead is the dream of becoming a full-time author with a publishing houses that don't even know how to market books anymore. The way to do it is to start a movement, your own personal movement, to have a group of people believe in you and have them elevate you into a position of authority to speak and tell stories from that point of view. And so, for instance, that Peruvian guy, he is going to elevate their stories. And people over there and people in America who are Peruvian that get to know him and understand what he's doing are going to elevate him. They are going to be willing to financially support him, which could be as easy as giving him $5 a month on Substack. And if 1,000 people do that, that's $60,000 a year, which is more than 99.9% of authors who are trying to go the publishing route make. And I've been there before, you guys. I've tried to change who I am with my writing and even how I speak to you guys on here to be more elevated or to be like more like the other booktubers, like, oh, don't ran Ian, write a script. And when I do that, maybe it is slightly better for the average random person, but it feels terrible. We've all been there before. We've all imitated or done something artistically that isn't authentic to us, and it sucks. But some people double down on that. And even worse, some people do that in a shadow way. Some people are so disconnected from their own emotions and their own experience as artists that they can't even pull it together enough to understand that they aren't being fake. And so to answer the question now of how to find your authentic voice and how to find your style is, first of all, realize who you are and who you are actually writing for, because it is a lie and you're telling yourself a lie and you were romanticizing a lie that was built by this golden age of literature that lasted for a century or so, that you were writing for everyone, that you're going to go into the slush pile and you're going to be an everyman and everyone's going to understand you. That's a lie. And so if you figure out who you are and who you were writing for, and that most likely is for people that you like and who like you, then that's going to be fun. That's going to be actually the source of art, because we've made art so serious. But I remember, we've all probably been there if you're a writer. Back in high school, I used to write girls who I liked, like poems, just these dumb little poems. And they'd be like, oh my God, that's so nice of you. But I also wrote some poems for some of my male friends. Like I was a part of a very close-knit sports team. And at the end of the experience, I remember just like writing a couple poems about like everything that we went through. And it was a nice thing. And I gave them to everyone. And we didn't cry or like, it was just kind of like, wow, like, yeah, like you captured that feeling. And I had other friends I had a friend in that group who became a rapper, and he made some rap songs about our experiences. And like, that was fun. And my poem and those songs that my friend made weren't made to go mainstream and be the next, Drake or Young Lean blow up, but rather it was made for each other. It was made for a group of people. And what's insane is that sports team I was talking about, I did cross country and track and field in high school. And my high school was next to a desert, just an empty desert. So we ran in the desert every day. So during the off season and during the season, I was out in the desert every single day. And I'm a desert poet now. And so a lot of those poems I wrote to my friends and to those girls and stuff took place in the desert. Now I am a desert poet. Now that is the area I am trying to be the authority in. 10 years from now, I will have 5+ books of desert poetry released. I will have translated hundreds of poems in a desert poetry style. But I didn't realize that was my purpose. I didn't realize that was what I had fun doing until I stopped trying to be a fake. When I was 19, 20, 21, I was in the university writing workshops and getting grilled and trying to, write the perfect workshop piece so that no one could critique me. Trying to be like David Foster Wallace and Cormac McCarthy and write in this elevated language and push the limits. I'm going to show everyone, you'll remember my name. Like I get messages all the time, like on Instagram or Substack from like random fans who are young, and they remind me of myself. And they're like, remember the name, Adam White. You're going to see me on bookshelves all over the world one day. And that's not what we need. And Vonnegut is also talking about here of honoring your culture and honoring your ancestors. And this is something that we've fallen so far away from, because a weird thing has happened over the past couple decades where many of us millennials and Gen Zers and stuff have opened up to the kind of the toxicity of our parents and the boomer generation and all these other people. And we're like, oh my God, you guys are so emotionally stunted, because we had an opportunity to live in of an emotionally available and interesting world. But there are so many lessons and teachings and psychic contracts and weird things that spending time with our elders can teach us. And if you look at the rate of suicide and depression and unhealthiness and so many other things, in my opinion, it's because we moved away too fast from all of those things. And yes, we got rid of some of the bad, but we also took away a lot of the good. And so many people try to run away from their life, and maybe because their family is toxic. But even if you don't want to talk to your family or be that involved, that doesn't mean that you can't honor where you're from and your culture and the voice and all these different things. And this is why I feel like it's very upsetting that the publishing industry has forced this upon us, because over the last 10 or 15 years, the big push with diversity quotas has been minority voices, elevating voices that have never been heard before. But that's killed the publishing industry, because I hate to say it, and that's why we read. Like, we do read so that we can get into other people's minds. But I occasionally like to do that. But I don't need to all the time be in the head. I don't like certain perspectives. I don't care about them. I can't care about all of them. And to make me believe and make me think that I'm, whatever polemic or whatever, because I don't care about all that, is silly. And so the publishing industry is supposed to be elevating the stylist, the elevated language, the best writers, the meritocracy of writing. And everyone else is supposed to be making grassroots movements like I'm trying to do, like I've been encouraging you guys to do, trying to build a personal movement. And so what happened is that, a lot of those diverse voices books sold terribly. The trust economy in the publishing world has collapsed. I don't trust books anymore unless so many people have told me, like, if a book comes out this year in 2025 and I don't know the author, I'm going to need validation from so many people to read that book, because I've been burned so many times. I could reread this entire shelf behind me and not get burned once. And this stems, I'm just going to start dropping knowledge here. Or facts, it stems from a sense of entitlement. And I don't know where politically we can get in, someone down in the comments can get into all that. But, our society of entitlement that got created by government endowments, we'll talk about the MIC-MFA workshop. The MFA factory started in the 1960s, and so many artists, James Wright, Robert Bly, Donald Hall, Gary Snyder, so many others said, this is going to kill poetry. This is going to kill writing. Artists are supposed to starve. Artists aren't supposed to be superstars. Artists are supposed to make people care. And we've created a bubble and now a system where a bunch of professors are entitled because they've been given fellowships and grants and professor jobs where they can float. And they've now pushed that onto the next generation of MIC-MFA factory people. And so I had one of these professors, and she's so great, so kind, love her to death, taught me a lot. But when I told her that this is what I was going to do, that I had this vision a decade ago. She shaked her head like, why would you want to do that? You don't have to do that, Ian. Just go, you have all the connections you need to go to the MFA route and the PhD route. Like, I'll make sure you get into programs, like yada, yada, yada. I'll make sure you get published in these journals that I edit. Like, all the connections are there. It's all just networking, you guys. Like, I have a friend who, we're not really friends. We don't really talk that much anymore, but someone who was with me during that time, a fellow poet, she went that route. She now has a PhD. She now has a professorship position. She's been published by multiple journals. But objectively, she got all of that through networking. She's kind. She's great. She knows everybody. And they give her opportunities because they help them. So this is the dark side of the industry that people don't like to talk about. This is sad, though, because taking money, working with the government, working in academia takes the soul out of what you were trying to do. It ruins that authentic voice. To exist there, to be there, is antithetical to the source of where you were coming from in the first place. Imagine. And it's funny because the program that I was a part of, we had so much money, the Black Mountain Institute, so much money. So we would bring these authors in from across the world, all these, exiled or, artists, I forget the word. And I'd be looking at them like, dude, like, here you are in Las Vegas, in some office, cooped up, teaching 3 classes a semester, and you're happy, but, is this really honoring? Are you really with your people right now? Are you really actually building something? And the answer is no. And that's why their books don't sell. That's why people don't care about them. That's why they can't rev people up if they needed to. It's a sad world we're living in, everyone. And so, boom, knowledge dropped. If you guys want to support me, you can subscribe. You can go check out some of my other social media. I do have a Substack that costs $10 a month. I have more content over there. I have a book club over there. I have some cool stuff going on over there. I have my writings over there. I have free content over there too, if you guys want to check that out. So being a free subscriber over there is also really cool because Substack is the home of the literary renaissance. And so thank you guys for being here, and I will see you in the next video.